Hi, I'm Mike Duran. I'm a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute and the director of the Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Dr. Yuval Steinitz, former energy minister of Israel, member of Knesset, and expert on global energy. He's here to talk with us about the Israel-Lebanon Maritime border agreement brokered by the United States. And joining me to interview Dr. Steinitz is Tony Badran of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Tony is the leading voice in the United States in opposition to this deal, and he's a noted expert on Lebanon. So without further ado, Dr. Steinitz, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, with the famous Hudson Institute. And it's my pleasure.
So to get us started here, could you just give us a general summary of your view of the Maritime Border Agreement?
Well, I feel a little bit uneasy to do it because I think it's a horrible agreement from Israeli point of view. I started this round of negotiation when I was still energy minister at 2020. And before we even started, I demanded a clear letter of understanding that was brokered by the United States, but agreed by both sides, that specify and limit the scope of the negotiation. And it was made very clear that this negotiation is not about the borders between Israel and Lebanon, I mean the land borders, and not about any amount of gas, and not about Karish, and not about security arrangements, but only on one issue. 860 square kilometers of economic water that were disputed between Israel and Lebanon. Maybe it's good or important that I will give you the background, how this dispute started. Actually, it's all started in 2011, 11 years ago, when Israel and Lebanon submitted to the UN the demarcation according to their view of their economic water, of their EEZ, exclusive economic water. And we submitted lines that is called line number one, and the Lebanese immediately submitted the southern line that going a little bit to the south, let's call it line 23. And the gap between the two lines, at the beginning, there is no gap at all, close to the coast. But 7 or 8 kilometers from the coast, still in the territorial water of Israel and Lebanon, there is a little gap that is getting wider and wider until both of us are bordering with Cyprus, with Cypriot economic water. And at the maximum, at the border with Cyprus, it's even 15 kilometers, the gap between the two lines. Altogether, it's a very long and narrow triangle, amount to 660 square kilometers. One important issue that should be, that it's important to understand how it's all started. When we submitted our map to the UN, we actually adopted the Lebanese view. There was an agreement between Lebanon and Cyprus about the demarcation of their economic waters, signed in 27. And we looked at it, we looked at the map that was already signed between Lebanon and Cyprus. We didn't want to open any dispute. And we told ourselves, this looks reasonable, although we can also make additional claims, but it's look reasonable. Why to open another dispute in the Middle East? Let's adopt the Lebanese version that appear in their map, their agreement with Cyprus. Once the Lebanese heard that we are going to submit their line, their southern border as our northern border, they immediately came to the UN and said, no, we were wrong.
Welcome to the Middle East.
Calculation was wrong in 27. We were wrong. Our agreement with Cyprus, we made some mistakes. The border should be several kilometers to the south. And this is the beginning of the dispute. So the whole negotiation was about these disputed areas, and it was clear from the outset, and it was clarified by the American broker, by the United States, that the aim of this negotiation, which is supposed to be direct negotiation by our two teams sitting together with the Americans in the same room in Nakura, in the UN base in Nakura, the aim of the negotiation was clearly to resolve this dispute by way of some kind of compromise. I checked, when I led the negotiation as Minister of Energy, I mean, I got a mandate from the government of Israel, from the Israel Security Cabinet. I checked what happened in other similar disputes all over the globe. For example, how the dispute between Chile, I think, between Peru and Ecuador, between the United States and Mexico, in the Gulf of Mexico, there was similar dispute between, there is a big unsolved dispute between Turkey and Greece and Turkey and Cyprus. What happened between Malaysia and Thailand? And as far as I can recall, in all similar disputes, the two sides started to negotiate, it was ended with compromise. It was not necessarily 50-50% compromise. Sometimes it was 60-40 or something like that, but there was some kind of compromise. This is an historic antecedent, I think unparalleled, that one side got 100% of the disputed area and one side got 0. And actually, in my time, it was clear that we are going to something like 50-50 or 45-65 or even 40-60, but I never imagined even that it will end with such compromise that one side is getting 0, nothing, and one side is getting 100%.
I think you could even argue. Sorry to interrupt. I think you could even argue that that Israel got a little bit less than 0, because it can't. As I understand it, it's not going to develop its portion of the Kana prospect. So you could even argue further, but that's an academic point. I take your point, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. I think there is something in your comment. And I tell you what it is. But generally speaking, the dispute was not about gas. And nobody verified yet, it's not clear yet that there is a significant amount of gas in the Kana field, so-called. There might be some gas there. There is an undersea geological structures that might hold some natural gas, but nobody ever drilled there, so it's not verified even. In my view, this is not the important point, because when you are dealing about your economic water, about the demarcation of your economic water, it's not about a specific gas field. It's for 50 and 100 and 200 years. Who knows what else will be found there? Most of the territory, most of the area was not investigated yet, was not explored yet. Even Kana was not thoroughly explored. Only seismic data are suggesting that maybe there is something there. But who knows what kind of minerals we need, the world will need, Israel will need, Lebanon will need 50 or 100 years from now. It's forever. And therefore, reasonable countries are arguing and fighting and negotiating about their exclusive economic zone demarcation. And I don't know even of one example that one country is saying, okay, you can get everything and we will get nothing of the disputed area. About your remark, there was a big, what we call bluff or element that in the so-called agreement, that people are saying that we are not giving away 100%, because we are going to get from Total, not from Lebanon directly, but from Total, the companies that will explore Cana. If there will be gas in Cana, we are going to get 17%. So this is some kind of compensation for our generosity, if you like. But this is ridiculous. First, if you read the agreement, the number 17% have no trace there, and no number appear. Secondly, it's not compensation, because it is about, in this geological structure, there are some fingers that are going into Israel beyond the disputed area. So if there will be gas also in this finger, and once you drill and you explore and you develop a gas field, you don't drill everywhere. You usually take the gas from the center or close to the center of the structure, of the geological structure. So if there will be gas in this finger, that is very narrow finger, that is crossing the border into Israel, beyond the disputed area, which is according to the international law, belong to Israel without any dispute, then we can negotiate with Total about getting money for the gas that actually they are taking from the Israeli side. But the figure 17% doesn't appear. It's a figure in the Israeli Energy Ministry evaluation. The Lebanese side will say immediately, I am confident, zero, that zero gas is remained on the Israeli side. There will be some kind of negotiation. I doubt if we will get more than 2 or 3% of the field. And in any case, this is not something that, this is not a compromise by Lebanon, because we are speaking about something that, if it exists at all, it is entirely beyond the disputed area in the Israeli territory.
Yes.
This is a very important point, actually, if I just may, because
sorry,
the coverage...
Tony,
yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Tony, can I just, I have one little academic point I want, and then I'll hand it to you, Tony. It seems to me, I just want to do it because we're on this topic right now. There's another thing that I haven't heard anyone discuss, and I'd just like to get your view about it. It seems to me also likely that Total tomorrow could sell its rights, or it could pull out. So as far as I understand, to the extent that Israel has an agreement with anyone about the 17%, it's with Total, not with Lebanon. So if another company comes in and starts exploiting it, where's Israel? Am I wrong about that? That's just me thinking. I'm not sure if I'm making sense or not.
It's even worse, because we don't have an agreement even with Total. In the agreement with Lebanon, it is written in the agreement that we can speak with Total and try to reach an agreement with Total. It's not that we already have an agreement with Total.
That's like somebody borrows money from me, and then I go to get it from them and say, oh, go talk to so-and-so, he owes me money.
It's structured
something like that.
It's structured like the JCPOA. It's like annexes, you have basic,
but there is no agreement yet, and it's even written that Total can start exploring the area without having Israeli consent or agreement with Israel. So we don't have even a serious leverage on Total. And you are perfectly right. Total can sell its right tomorrow to ENI, and ENI can sell it to Novotech or to another company. And we will have to run after them with no leverage and with no chance at all to get something. So in my view, if I have to gamble, from this 17% that doesn't exist in the agreement, there is no such figure in the agreement, we will get zero will be a very reasonable figure.
This is an important point, I think, to flesh out, because to underscore, because the coverage of the deal has been extremely misleading, both in Israel and the United States. They're deliberately conflating two different things. So they're conflating the 17% estimate that Israel would get compensated for by Total with the 45 to 55% ratio of the previous American proposal. And then they're saying, well, it's only a slight difference. Netanyahu would have agreed to the same thing. It's only just a little percentage of a difference. But they're conflating, like Dr. Steinitz just said, the entirety of the disputed area with a section that was never in dispute. And so one of the interesting things that came out from the briefing that senior officials, one of them I think is Hochstein, obviously on this deal, mentioned something, a point that Dr. Stein has also mentioned, which is that he says that the Lebanese can start exploring the Kana prospect and other fields potential in that area. Right. So there are things there that we don't know yet because there's never been any exploration. So the conflation of the 17% of the Kana prospect that's already in Israel and not in the disputed area with the disputed area and everything else that could exist in it is deliberate, misleading coverage. So that's a very important point that you just made.
Tony, that was crystal clear. I couldn't phrase it better. And just one little reservation. There is no 17% anywhere in the agreement. The 17% is only an estimate, in order to start the bargaining from a better place made by the Israeli Energy Department. And I am confident that the Lebanese Energy Department, their figure will be 0. By the way, we have a similar situation with Cyprus, with very friendly Cyprus, about Aphrodite Ishai. Aphrodite, it's a big, not big, medium size natural gas field that most of it is in Cyprus, on the Cypriot side of their economic water, and only little part on the Israeli side. We are saying that approximately 10% are on our side. They are saying 0. And now we are speaking with them, and I assume maybe there we will get 1 or 2%. But there, between us and friendly Cyprus, we are telling the companies involved there, don't dare to develop the field until there is an agreement about our share. Here, there is even no such possibility. So it seems that if somebody was trying to formulate the worst agreement possible from the Israeli side, and he got a very significant success. This is really an antecedent.
And I assume that the Cypriots are now jumping with joy, and they're going to come to you and say, well, you made this agreement with the Lebanese. Let's use that as a model.
Yeah, and by the way, we have a very little, but still, a dispute also between us and Egypt. This is a minor, it's not that big. And I assume that it will have an impact also there. If we will ask to compromise, they will tell us, you gave 100% of the disputed area to hostile Lebanon, why friendly Egypt will get less?
Well, this, I don't know if you want to get into this area, but this is something that Tony and I have made a lot of noise about. And that is if you look at it from the American point of view, of all the problems in the world that your senior energy advisor in the State Department could go to try to solve, why choose this one? I mean, you could do Israel-Cyprus, you could do Israel-Egypt, you could do Greece-Turkey, which is threatening war between two NATO allies. You could go do Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan to try to bring Turkmen gas to Europe, would actually change the balance of power in
I just want to comment And to remind you, I don't remember who suggested the mediation, this new round, but we were very satisfied. Our approach was that it's better to have an agreement and to resolve this dispute. Also for us, but even more so for Lebanon, we don't want to see Lebanon collapsing into a chaos or a humanitarian crisis. And therefore, if the Lebanese would find a gas field in their territory and develop it for their sake, and this will help to improve the humanitarian and the economic situation in Lebanon, we have nothing against it. On the contrary, we would like it to happen. So in our view, the fact that the United States was trying to help both sides to negotiate and to try to get an agreement, we saw it in the positive. But an agreement should be a reasonable agreement and not this kind of unparalleled, I think it's really unparalleled in the world, this agreement. So I want to add, with your permission, Tony spoke about the misleading way that this agreement was presented, both in Israel and in the United States. And I totally agree. I cannot agree more. Speaking about the Israeli media, for example, in the main television news bulletin, Channel 12, the reporter, when they started the bulletin at the evening, the reporter said, now we know already that Israel didn't give in 100% because we are getting 17% compensation. There is no 17% in the agreement. There is nothing even close to that. And in any case, if we will get something, it's not compensation because this is about our gas beyond the disputed area.
Yeah. The 17% is what's already on your side of the line.
I tell you, it's not 17%. I hope it's 2 or 3%. I'm afraid it will amount to zero. At the end, it will boil down to zero.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll give you another example about how ridiculous it was, at least in the Israeli media. One of the main arguments was going like this. If there will be a Lebanese gas platform, gas rig, on the Lebanese side in Kana, standing only 10 kilometers or 7 miles away from the Israeli gas platform in Karish, then Hezbollah will never attack the Israeli platforms in Karish or in Leviathan or Tamar because they are vulnerable. There will be a gas platform in Lebanon and we can destroy it very easily. This is so ridiculous. First, this is a terrorist organization. If they will shoot and kill some Americans or Brits or other workers on our gas platforms, we shall do the same. We will attack a French and Italian gas platform of Total and Eni, and we will kill Frenchmen and Italians over there. This is ridiculous. Secondly, it's not clear, even if there will be a gas there, it's not clear that the platform will be there. It's very likely, much more likely, that the platform will be onshore in Lebanon or offshore, but close to the Lebanese coast, like Leviathan. Leviathan platform is 100 kilometers from Leviathan field. Karish, the Karish platform is sitting really above the field, but this is a rarity. This is not usually the situation with maritime gas fields. Usually the situation is that the platform is either onshore or close to the coastal line and not far away at the sea. And thirdly, what kind of argument it is? According to this argument, that if Lebanon will have a platform, they will hesitate to launch attack on our platform, even in time of conflagration, of war or this. According to this logic, it's very good that we will have a port in Haifa, a port in Lebanon, in Beirut, that we have the Beirut port, because therefore Hezbollah will never shoot missiles on the Haifa port, because we can destroy the port in Junia or Beirut. And it's very good that we have in Lebanon, Beirut and Sidon, because they will never launch rockets into Haifa or Tel Aviv, because they know that we have a massive firepower that we can level the Beirut and Sidon. But in fact, during the Second Lebanese War in 2006, they have launched rockets on the Haifa port, although they have similar ports in Lebanon. Right. And they have launched rockets on many Israeli towns and cities, including Haifa, although we could destroy Lebanon and we really leveled the Dahia in Beirut. It was never an argument for a terrorist organization not to attack us because we can attack the other side. Even Hamas in Gaza is launching from time to time rockets on our cities, although our firepower is 20,000 times stronger than theirs. And they always have much more casualties.
So I have two questions about this then. One about the American calculus. By the way, Tony and I agree with you 100% about this. It's ridiculous thinking, and you don't expect this level of ridiculous thinking about a terrorist organization from Israelis. Now, yeah. I don't expect it from the U.S. government either. But the average person who's not paying attention, it kind of sounds like it makes sense, and I can understand somebody who's not paying close attention can say, "Oh, well, that makes sense." But why do you think the Israelis, who have had so much experience with Hezbollah and know exactly what that organization is, why are they selling themselves this line of nonsense?
I tell you. I think it's because the forthcoming elections. The Israeli media is almost totally biased towards the liberal left, toward the Yair Lapid vis-a-vis Benjamin Netanyahu. And once Lapid decided to give in and to sign this agreement with the aim of having some kind of diplomatic achievement prior to the elections 2 weeks from now, the media rejected all criticism and tried to present it as a very reasonable agreement. By the way, until 3 or 4 months ago, such a compromise, so-called, it's not a compromise that you are giving 100% and getting 0, but it was not on the table during Naftali Bennett as prime minister. I know that they were negotiating, they proceeded with this line of negotiations that I started 2.5 years ago, but it was always about some kind of compromise, maybe not 50-50, but 40-60 or something like that. But they never even imagined that it's going to be 100-0. And this is a new development only when Lapid took office, when he replaced Naftali Bennett. I assume he told himself, okay, we are ready to give them 60%, so let's give in also the 40% and have a very nice agreement and a diplomatic achievement for me just several weeks before the election. And the Israeli media, unfortunately, you can be biased, but there is still some distance between being biased and totally misleading your audience. And this is actually what happened here. Yeah.
There's an interesting coincidence too in this. I mean, it's not a coincidence, it's a data point that the rotation from Naftali Bennett to Yair Lapid also coincides with when Hezbollah decided to launch the drones against the Karish field. They timed it exactly when Lapid took over. So there was, in a way, a dance, if you like, between Hezbollah and the administration to apply concerted pressure on, specifically on Lapid as they're moving forward. But that raises another point that I would like to ask you about, because you've mentioned the openness toward helping Lebanon, but the elephant in the room in all of this, which is something that Netanyahu has pointed to, that basically this agreement comes as it's appeasement and blackmail and responsible. And I think you've said the same thing, that this is just basically succumbing to blackmail by Hezbollah. So how did you, when you were negotiating, I mean, how did you reconcile the fact that, look, we're not negotiating with a normal state. There's a terrorist group that runs that state, and the money and the territory. And I mean, how did you balance all of these issues as you made your decisions in the negotiation?
Tony, first I want to tell you, you are right that they have launched drones vis-a-vis Karish gas platform. Vis-a-vis Karish gas. Only one day after Lapid replaced Naftali Bennett. So probably they were waiting for this. It was already known 2 weeks in advance that this replacement is going to take place, and they were waiting. Why, I don't know. Maybe the thought that under Naftali Bennett, the Israeli reaction will be much stronger, than only intercepting those drones. But I don't believe that there was a conspiracy here. That somebody, timed it, the Americans or the Israelis with the Hezbollah. I think that this was a Hezbollah calculation, that they wanted to threaten us and to show their bravery, so to call. They were afraid to do it during Naftali Bennett primaryship. They were afraid to do it during Netanyahu terms, because this is a production gas rig. But 3 or 4 years ago, I flew with a helicopter. There was a developing gas rig. And 10 years ago, there was a drilling gas rig. So if they wanted to launch attacks or to make some threats, they could have done it 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and also 4 months ago before Naftali Bennett left office. And so this is clearly have been done after Lapid took office. I don't think that there was any coordination here. I think that Hezbollah here did appreciate the situation and did appreciate first the fact that there will be no severe reaction, serious reaction, and second, that Yair Lapid might use it even as an excuse to reach an agreement in order to avoid conflagration. And nobody wants conflagration.
I don't want to put words in Tony's mouth, but I think he was saying the same thing that you were saying, except, and Tony, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the way I would put it. They saw an opportunity to put pressure on Lapid, but they also knew, or they could assume, that the American administration was going to mediate or even come toward the Lebanese position, rather than, you could imagine another American administration would say, Karish Field is solidly within, no matter how you slice it, it's in Israel's exclusive economic zone. It's as Israeli as Haifa or Hadera or any other place. And we support Israel's right to defend itself. And we don't expect Israel to cave to intimidation like this. But instead, they sent Amos Hochstein. I would say they timed it for Lapid, and they also immediately invites Hochstein to come mediate. And Hochstein says, "Here I come, here I come." So I don't think that Hezbollah. That any of that was a surprise to Hezbollah. And I think that even further, the United States has been playing this kind of game. I'm sorry, the Biden administration has been playing this kind of game with Iran with respect to the UAE and with respect to the Saudis and the Houthis. That is to say, the U.S. has been refusing time and time again to identify the Houthis as a proxy of Iran, and to deal with it as a terrorist organization, and instead has been promoting mediation between the Houthis and the UAE, the Houthis and the Saudis, and so on, and presenting itself as the mediator. So when Tony and I look at this, we see a larger pattern here, and it's disturbing to see the Israelis laud the Americans for playing this role, which shouldn't be their role as the superpower patron of their allies.
Look, although this is an extremely bad agreement, it would be difficult to tailor a worse agreement. Yeah, it's really this is not a major disaster because it's not an historic agreement as Lapid called it. It's after all, it's a technical agreement that shouldn't end up like this. But I'm more disturbed because the real important issue for Israel and for the entire world is the Iranian nuclear project. Right. And the fact that the Iranians are now enriching uranium to 60%, to high level for the first time in their history. And I don't see any serious reaction on behalf of America. I don't see any tangible military threat, any red line, any ultimatum to the Iranian. Either you stop and dismantle everything that you enriched beyond 3.5% or at least beyond 20%, or you will find yourself in a war with the United States of America. This is the only thing that can deter the Iranians. It did work in the past. It did work after the American invasion to Iraq in 2003. Immediately they stopped any nuclear activities for 2 years because they were afraid that they saw the rapid collapse of Saddam Hussein, and they thought that they don't want to mess with the US militarily. It's happened again during the Obama administration, under our pressure, not right at the beginning, but we pressured Obama, and Obama put very serious sanctions, and more important even, he put a very crystal clear military threat to Iran. He spoke about the military option. He gave order to develop the GBU-57, the 7-ton bunker penetrating bomb that was aimed to hit the Iranian underground nuclear facilities. And he announced that this bomb was developed and that now they have the tool if necessary. He sent the air forces to the Gulf, and he put a tangible military threat to the Iranians. They took it seriously, that if they will run to the bomb, they will find themselves in a war with the United States. Then, of course, with Trump, they were afraid, especially after the killing of Soleimani, and that if he can order the killing of Soleimani in daylight, not in a secret, not in a clandestine operation, but then he may attack us as well. And they also thought that Netanyahu's influence on Trump is such that if the Iranian will run to the bomb, Netanyahu can pressure or can convince Trump to attack them. And now, for the first time in history, they are enriched only last year, only since, I think, last June of last year, a year ago, they started to enrich to 60%. Yeah. They didn't do so after Trump left the agreement. Trump left the agreement in 2018. They didn't dare to cross the 3.5% line, enrichment level. They made some minor fouls, but very minor fouls, symbolic fouls. Then they started to enrich to 20%, but 20% they already enriched in the past, in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, before the interim agreement. They already were there. So they came to 20%. And only last year, 3 years after Trump left the agreement, and 1 year into Biden administration, less than 1 year, suddenly they said that they are enriching to 60%. 60% is almost 90%. The gap is almost zero. Right. And the United States, this time, is doing nothing. Biden, which I think that he's a great friend of Israel. I met him several times in the past. I don't hesitate I don't doubt his feelings for Israel. But we don't see any American ultimatum. And if Iran will get nuclear, this is the end of the NPT. Yeah. It's not North Korea. In the case of North Korea, it's bad enough, but Japan and South Korea didn't follow yet. If Iran will get nuclear, immediately Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Algeria and Turkey will follow, and maybe some other states in the region. This will be a devastating blow to the traditional American strategy, American approach to the NPT. It will be the end, actually, of the non-proliferation regime. And America is standing and doing actually nothing. So if you ask me, this is bad if you think that this might repeat itself with regard to the Iranian nuclear project.
Right. I mean, it's not standing and doing nothing. It's doing worse than nothing, because this is a tacit form of, a quiet form of appeasement of Iran. Anyway, Tony, you have a question here?
It wasn't a question. It was just a comment on something you both said now that I think is important. I mean, it's important to view the maritime deal as an extension of this posture toward Iran that you're describing. And Mike, you put it very well. The United States is positioning itself as a mediator between Israel and in the case of Yemen, for instance, Saudi Arabia and an Iranian equity. That's how they see it. And it was very interesting how they described, I think it may have been Brett McGurk along with Hochstein on the call, but I'm not sure. Before they delved into talking about the deal, the maritime deal, they framed it and they said, this is part of President Biden's regional integration policy in the Middle East. And what are the examples that he gave? Iraq, connecting Iraq to the electrical grid, de-escalating in Yemen, and the Israeli-Lebanon Maritime deal. So it's all a form of appeasement between United States allies on the one hand and Iranian equities on the other hand. So this posture is what they're projecting onto the maritime deal as well, which another thing that Dr. Stein has mentioned about the unresolved aspects or the stuff that is left hanging in this deal, the ambiguities of the deal. One of the things that's actually stated in the deal is that the United States positions itself as a mediator between Israel and basically Hezbollah in any future disputes over any future gas deposits that may also cross the line into Israel. So the United States is firmly positioning itself in this deal as the guarantor and mediator between the United States, between Israel on the one hand and the Iranian assets on the other hand.
Look, Tony, I want to be fair and honest. We asked the United States to be the mediator. The Lebanese wanted the UN, and we insisted that it will be the United States, and the UN will have no role as a mediator. They will only host the two delegations at the Nakura border installation camp. And it was our will. So I cannot complain about something that we asked the United States to do. You can claim that maybe it's a mistake from our perspective, but we did it. Also in 2012, when Hof was the American mediator, and also now. The first mediator, if I remember right, it was Satterfield. Then Satterfield was replaced by Shankar. And lately, Shankar was replaced by Hochstein. And I can tell you that although the United States was a mediator, the United States approach was that the Hof demarcation lines, that the Hof proposal is a very reasonable solution. And the Hof line is almost 50-50%. It's almost in the center. It's a little bit, it's 55-45 or 54-46, something like that. It's almost in the middle. And I don't know what happened lately, but it seems to me that the US position about this was changed suddenly without any reasonable cause.
Yeah, just for the benefit of our viewers, the Hoff line was a line presented by Fred Hoff, who was in the Obama administration, and he was mediating and presented, as Dr. Steinitz said, a line between the Israeli claim of line 1 and the Lebanese claim of line 23 that was 55-45 in favor of the Lebanese. Do you? I agree with you, Dr. Steinitz, that that the deal itself, I mean, just in terms of the what's at stake on the ground, it's not that big of a deal. This is not a national security disaster for Israel, but it's what's more troubling to me is all of the things that you've said. The most troubling thing to me is the American role and the apparent capitulation to Iran that I see in it. But then the also troubling thing is to see the Americans and the Israelis work together so aggressively to cover up all of the real details and present it as some kind of historic agreement, some kind of tacit recognition between Hezbollah and Israel that is going to lead us to a kind of Abraham Accords with Hezbollah. It's a celebration of nonsense like I've never seen before.
Much ado about really nothing. I mean, nothing with regard to peace, a lot with regard for appeasement. Yeah.
But I do think it has weakened Israeli deterrence to some degree. I don't know how to measure such a thing, but I do think it has undermined deterrence, and I wonder if you agree with that.
Yeah, surely it's not strengthening our deterrence. Yeah, I mean, there was no real reason to give in. Yeah, I mean, let's assume they would come and say, okay, we agree to 65-35. So I will say this is not a great achievement, but it's a compromise still, but 100% zero. Look, Cyprus is so weak, Turkey is so strong, and the Cypriot, no way they will tell the Turks, okay, take 100% of the disputed EEZ of Cyprus, or that is disputed. The same goes with Turkey and Greece. Greece doesn't want any war with Turkey. I'm confident about it. Still, they are not giving in. So here, we never thought to give in everything. We always thought that if there will be an agreement, it will be a reasonable compromise. So suddenly, Lapid is becoming prime minister. A day after that, there are 3 drones going into the Karish rig and intercepted by our forces. And several weeks later, suddenly we are giving away everything. This is not. This doesn't create a strong image in this very difficult neighborhood of the Middle East. Yeah, this is it. You cannot behave like this too often. Yeah, I mean, we will overcome this accident, but it's an accident. Yeah.
Do you want to?
It's not a fatal accident, but it's a serious accident.
Do you want to speculate? I don't think we know anything. You mentioned that in the last stage here, there was in previous stages, there was a compromise on the table, and suddenly, after Lapid came in, there was basically an Israeli capitulation. We don't know, as far as I can tell. I've been reading the Israeli press and the American press. I haven't seen anything that I thought was a credible explanation of the collapse. The journalists like Barak Ravid, who are, let's just say, to put it kindly, are in favor of Lapid. They are presenting it as a process that was completely run by Lapid from the beginning. He worked with the Israeli national security establishment to arrive at this decision, and this is what he wanted. I'm skeptical. I tend to think that there was probably a strong guiding American hand there, unseen, and that the Americans were as interested as the Israeli press in presenting this as a Lapid achievement, because the Biden administration itself doesn't want to see a return of Bibi Netanyahu. But do you want to speculate at all about the calculations that went on?
First, I don't know. I can only speculate. And if you ask me if I have to gamble, I would estimate that, Lapid took it to his hands. He saw that also under Naftali Bennett, they agreed to something, or they were going in the direction of 60-40, or maybe even 35-65. I heard such a rumor as well. They said, okay, so 35%, it's better to get an agreement at hand than insist on we left only with 35% or with 40%. It's not that important for us. We have very significant gas fields already running and operating, and we have very good energy security, and prices in Israel, the inflation is much more moderate than in the United States and Europe because of that, because we have an abundance of gas and with very cheap prices, $4.50 per MMBTU. By the way, when I was energy minister and I made the gas framework, and I paved the way and pushed the development of Leviathan and then Karish Tanin in order to have 3 gas fields and to have energy security, and not to import gas or coal to our power stations, but to have our own gas. Lapid party, Yesh Atid, Lapid and his party were voting against it at the Knesset as an opposition. And some of them even said that it's better to leave the gas under the sea, because now we have to shift to renewables. So it's not good to develop our gas resources. I can tell you that if I would be listening to them,
I find that amusing.
I would tell you that if I would be listening to them today, electricity prices in Israel would be 1,000% higher than they are today. The country, we would have to import, of course, instead. Instead of paying $4 per unit, we would pay $50 or $70 per LNG in the Mediterranean. Those are the prices in the last 2 years, or coal instead. Our air pollution would be 3 times higher, because with the gas, we replace most of our coal power stations with gas turbines. And we would have a high inflation and high unemployment. As you see, that we would find ourselves in a very similar situation to Germany or Britain, that factories and businesses and restaurants even and pubs and swimming pools and hotels are closing their doors because they cannot pay the energy bills. And this is going to cause also a very serious unemployment in the next year or so in Europe.
Look, all that's true, but and that's on the one hand. But on the other hand, John Kerry would invite you to his parties, right? And he would say nice things about you. And I mean, so you have high energy prices and people out of work, but you have the love of John Kerry. I mean, to me, that's an obvious decision what to do.
No, I have the love of my wife and kids, and this is very good and satisfying. But I want to tell you, to be fair and honest, the Americans, the Biden administration, did help me several times in order to pave the way for the development of our gas fields. We have had some problems with the Jordanians, for example, in 2016. Jordan didn't want to buy Israeli natural gas, although it saves them a lot of money, because they say they cannot trust supply from Israel because there is such a public scandals and demonstrations about the issue, about developing the gas field. So in 2016, I asked Biden as vice president to help us, and he spoke with the Jordanians, and really he and also Hochstein helped us to resolve this issue with Jordan, and this was important to pave the way for the development of Leviathan, because this was the biggest contract of Leviathan, the development of Leviathan, since it's deep water gas, cost almost $5 billion, the initial development of Leviathan. It's offshore, the gas field is 100 kilometers offshore in very deep water, it's very costly. So, but to tell you about this issue, again, I think that it's good for them and good for us to have an agreement finally and to resolve this dispute. And I don't mind that Lebanon will enjoy the gas, although I know that you cannot prevent that if a country gets more resources, you cannot prevent that some of it will be leaked to Hezbollah. But this is also always our dilemma. For example, vis-a-vis Gaza, we are supplying Gaza with water, drinking water, and with electricity, because they cannot afford for themselves, because they never did something in order to develop their capacities there. But we don't want to see a humanitarian crisis of 2 million Arabs in Gaza, dying out of water or out of food or suffering out of electricity. Now we know that when we're supplying electricity to Gaza, Hamas is also using it. Also in his factories to produce rockets to launch on us. We know that if we are supplying water to Gaza, Hamas terrorists are also drinking it. But sometimes in the Middle East situation, we have to balance different interests and different issues. And we don't want to see a terrible humanitarian crisis in Gaza and not also in Lebanon. First, because we are human beings, and although they declare themselves as our enemies, they are still human beings over there. And secondly, also from our point of view, we don't think that it will be good for us if our neighbors will totally collapse.
Okay, listen, you've been very, very generous with your time. I could keep on talking with you for another hour, but I think we better close it here. But maybe I'll make you promise to come back when we have more questions about this. It's been enormously informative.
Thank you indeed.
And I take your point about American policy, and I apologize to President Biden and Amos Hochstein for blaming them alone for this disaster.
No, I think it's, look, the onus is on us. At the end, it's an agreement between us and Lebanon. And if it's a bad agreement and a terrible antecedent, it is our responsibility.
Okay.
We are responsible for what we are doing and what we are signing with our neighbors.
I'll give it to you with a little reluctance, but I'm sorry that we facilitated that so easily.
But I want to still, because if something keep me awake at night, it's not this bad agreement. But the fact that the Iranians are, for the first time, are enriching uranium to a high level of 60%, and the United States is actually sitting silent and placid. And one day it will end up like North Korea, and even worse, because as I mentioned, once Iran will get nuclear, several other authoritarian regimes in the Middle East will follow immediately.
Well, I guarantee you that that's the frame that Tony and I put this into. And when I said that this undermines Israeli deterrence, this also undermines American deterrence with regard to Iran. It sends a message to Iran of unseriousness in Washington, and it lets them know that they can keep testing the limits of the United States over and over again. Agree with you 100%. I hope to see you back here. Thanks again. This has really been enormously helpful. Oh, is that Nahum Gutman behind you? Is that who that is?
No. This is Van Gogh.
Okay.
A beautiful picture painted by Van Gogh.
Okay, you need Gutman, okay, because you're a Zionist.
Yeah,
right.
but I like Van Gogh, although he was not known as a great Zionist.
Okay.
But he was a good painter still.
All right. Okay, listen, thanks again. Take care. And
All
Tony,
the best.
Tony, thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, and thank you, Tony, as well. And all the best. It was my pleasure and my honor. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tony, we had Dr. Steinitz for so long. I think that there really isn't much for us to add. If you have some final statements or thoughts, I'd love to have them.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I mean, there are, precedents and that have been set that I think are being maybe a little downplayed a little bit or underappreciated. We will see. I mean, but it all relates to the American posture vis-a-vis Hezbollah and how it positions itself. He says that, well, we asked the United States. Sure, you asked the United States under Trump. There's a difference, I mean, there's obviously a different attitude toward Iran between the Trump administration on the one hand. However misguided, I still believe the effort was under Trump to revive this maritime track anyway, because it's all premised on the idea that there's a difference between Lebanon and Hezbollah. And you can see that assumption filter through to the Israeli side as well, which is a fundamentally flawed and wrong assumption. And they don't have a response to it. It's kind of like a blind spot for them. So I think all of these issues are still going to be a problem down the road. But yeah, I think the way you framed it in terms of how the US posture as the key issue here is the point.
All right. Well, Tony, listen, thanks a lot for joining me in this interview with Dr. Steinitz.
Thank you.
And I'll be seeing you again very soon, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.